We're going to be installing the VanTrue S1 dash camera, both on the front and the rear. As you can see, a very clean install, minimal cables that you can visibly see. Even the rear view camera here, you can hardly tell is there. Front camera from this direction lower is more visible. This is more the driving view, but you can barely see the camera. Just the orange button there will have a green flashing light. It's very faint, but gives you the confirmation that the camera is operating. It's still accessible by rotating the rearview mirror, and you can remove it, check the video footage, make any adjustments as needed. To get started, take your rearview mirror camera, rotate it counterclockwise, and take your camera now, and you can line it up with the vent there on the rearview mirror housing. That's the best place I found to place it. It's got a surface that's practically perfect for mounting it. You don't have to worry about your windshield tint coming off if you ever need to replace it. I've had it on again, like I said, 6,000 miles. It hasn't budged at all. So you can line it up directly with this vent, and then you'll be able to slide it forward when you do remove that red protective cover when you go to apply and stick it on. But this, you can get a few practice dry runs. You'll see as I slide it forward on that horizontal surface before it starts to turn vertical. Once it hits that corner, it would start to attach, right? It'd stick to the plastic there, and then you just rotate it forward, and then you'd apply it there, and it should be lined up perfect, nice and level. Practice that a few times. Now remove that cover, that protective film, and you'll be able to again line it up with that vent, and you're just going to slide it forward until the top edge of the adhesive makes contact with the plastic, and then you'll simply rotate it down like a hinge. Apply pressure. The 3M recommends 30 pounds of pressure. It doesn't specify a specific amount of time for holding that pressure. It just says that after 72 hours at 70 degrees, it will be fully adhered and cured. So I'm just rotating it, kind of pressing to the right, left, up, and down. And then grab your power cable, and you're going to move up now to see that USB power port that's in the rearview mirror housing. You'll plug it in. You can rotate the mirror, makes it a little easier, and you'll be able to see how the cable is routed. It is a perfect fit, this cable is. Again, you'll find that link to that cable. Same power specifications as the original OEM power cable. You'll plug it in. Bam. Next, we are going to need to remove the overhead console. See the plastic here? There's two orange clips. You're going to use a plastic pry tool, pop those down, and then there's two more gray ones behind that. You're going to need to pop those out as well. After that, there's a white power clip right there. You can see you have to remove that in order for the console to be able to just hang loose and dangle for you to be able to access up inside the headliner. This is a magnet with a tape to some fishing line to fish that wire through the headliner. If I were to do it again, I'd purchase this fishing wire with just any plastic clear tape. I used some Gorilla Clear duct tape when I first installed it, but you can also purchase this metal tab with magnets. It's for a dress shirt for the collar, but it's a nice makeshift tool to be able to run that fishing line through the headliner with a magnet. So take that metal tab, place it on a piece of tape kind of halfway down, then run that piece of tape through a loop in the fishing wire that you tied a knot, and then you're going to fold it back on itself. Now, once you do that, you're going to make sure it's tight, kind of press it, and then you're going to take another piece of tape and wrap it around just to make sure it doesn't snag on anything as you're running it along the headliner. So you'll do that. This piece is a little bit big, so I ripped it in half. And then you'll be able to just as tight as possible, just to make it as snag free as you can. You'll just wrap that tape, and then from there you will be able to use the magnet. And so this metal part would be inside the headliner and the magnet would be on the bottom side of the headliner, and then you'd be able to just run that along. Don't have to worry about the magnet adhering itself to the roof of the vehicle or any other types of structural supports that are metal up inside the headliner. It just makes it easier. I had a few times where it got stuck to the top of the roof of the vehicle. So then you can just fish this through the headliner, and you'll be able to tie the the rear view camera cable to that and then run it back through. So I'd already ran it through at this point, but you attach the magnets there with that piece of metal behind along the headliner. If I were to redo it, start over, I'd start from the rear view mirror and run it all the way along to the back of the car. But to get it through that small section, I'd take a wire and run it through this direction to the rear view mirror, attach the fishing line to it, pull it through that small section, and then run it along the headliner here all the way to the back. And then you have the fishing wire coming out. You can tie it to your rear view camera cable, push it back through, and then just pull on the fishing line that's at the other end of the car, and from there you'll be able to feed it back through this last section after you fed it through the entire headliner. So this section's kind of tough. There's a small gap. You can see it does have a little bit of wiggle room, but it's pretty tight. So you can put a plastic tool up in there to give yourself a little bit of clearance. I didn't pull down that trim piece, which might have been actually easier if I would have. But you can, what I ended up having to do was I just ran a cable from the rearview mirror side. See that small gap? Because the rearview camera cable right there is a 90-degree cable connection, it just wasn't getting through that small gap very easily. So I ended up running a cable the opposite direction from the rearview mirror back through, as you can see there, and then I just tied the two cables together with some Velcro and then pulled them all the way through. But see, that gap is pretty small, so again, like I said, I'd just run a wire initially, but this is what I was just dealing with, what I had. So connected those two, pulled it through, and then once you pull it through, then you've got your cord all the way from the rear all the way to the front. Unwrap those and then just plugged it into the camera, fed it up, made sure there was enough free play there, and then tucked the cable back in there. That's where I actually looped the extra cable length that I had, and I tucked it back up on the headliner right there. From the rear view camera to the front, there's quite a bit extra if you go with the OEM cable, unless you purchase a new one. But I just tucked it in there. Now, if I were to complete the install over again, like I said, I would run a wire down through that small gap and then attach my fishing line from behind the mirror there and then pull it through that small section, and then from there I'd take the fishing line and I'd fish it along with that magnet and that metal tab all the way to the rear. And then instead of attaching the power cord from the rear, I would pull the rear view camera cable from the front of the headliner to the back of the headliner. And lastly, there's a few different types, but here's some heat shrink that you could apply to the cable first before you run it through the headliner. I don't have any rattles on mine, but just prevents in the future needing to go back and pull it out and make any adjustments. The links for everything I purchased, including the camera, the polarizer to make sure you have a clear image, USB cable that's that custom length to make sure that it's a clean install, as well as an SD card. They're all listed in the description, as well as all the other tools needed for this installation.